This might end up being a controversial one, but everybody talks about the players you need to be picking up off of waivers, but nobody ever talks about the guys that you need to avoid at all costs that will burn a hole through your roster. That is exactly what I'm going to do here in this video. While everybody else is zagging, we're going to go ahead and zig. So if you do find any value from this video, go ahead and subscribe down below so you can get these videos every week. But you guys know me, I absolutely hate to waste your time in these videos, so we're going to get right into the list of the players you need to be avoiding off the waiver wire and let your league mates waste their fab and their waiver priority. And the first guy here is going to be Rashid Shaheed, and he's been catching a lot of hype recently. He saw 19 fantasy points in week 1, 10 in week 2, and 6 in week 3. But there's next to no season-long value here. Derek Carr did suffer a shoulder injury through week 3, but that's not going to be anything serious season-ending. This team on its own isn't really a pass-heavy squad. Besides last week when Carr was injured, he's averaged about 35 pass attempts a game. Now, that's not a super high amount, but it's also not a super low amount. But when you're a guy like Rashid Shaheed, he's a downfield guy, so he's not going to get a whole bunch of target volume like receivers that play in the slot would end up getting, but he is the clear wide receiver 3 behind Olave and Michael Thomas. So if we were to take out the target share of those two guys out of Derek Carr's passing attempts, that leaves him with about 10 to 15 targets. Not to account for the other receivers they use in this offense and the tight ends with Juwan Johnson and Alvin Kamara coming back to take a considerable amount of those leftover targets. If you were to look at his ceiling, it would be about 6 to 7 points, but that's him relying on touchdowns. I don't think he's ever going to be a consistent, even flex starter for us, so there's no point in holding him on our bench. But moving down to the next guy, or maybe group of guys here to not add off waivers, is the Giants backfield again. Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, Eric Gray. Do not be wasting your roster spots on any of these guys. The good news for Matt Breida, though, is that he came out and saw 82% of the snaps this week. He controlled the usage, he was the main pass blocker, and he was used in the receiving game. That's not really too valuable of a spot to be in because without Saquon, the Giants completely abandoned the run. They only had 10 rushing attempts on the day. Now, yes, they were playing one of the toughest run defenses in the 49ers last week, but if we're being honest, none of these guys are going to be an integral part of this offense with no Saquon. Even if Saquon were to miss multiple weeks, Matt Breida got saved by a touchdown, and Gary Brightwell, the backup to Breida, was a pretty much non-factor until the end of the game when they put all the bench players in for garbage time. But Saquon should be coming back soon, so again, there's absolutely no point in picking these guys up, even for like a weak start. But moving down to the next guy we need to be leaving on the waivers for everybody else to waste a spot on, and that is Dalton Kincaid. I just do not trust him yet. Since before preseason, we've been talking about how it's going to be hard for Dalton Kincaid to work himself into this offense to be a comfortable start every week. After all, they still have a fine tight end option in Dawson Knox, and we're not going to be starting Kincaid in our flex. So I guess the good news for him is that through 3 weeks, these two tight ends have split their snap share, and Kincaid has ran more routes. But regardless of that, Kincaid is not going to be anywhere near startable until Dawson Knox completely gives up his receiving role. And even if he were to completely give it up, there's already been other tight ends on the waivers that have no predecessor behind them to take a snap share from, like Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta last week, and those are two guys I would easily take over him. And I'm not denying that Kincaid could be usable later down the line of the season, but if we're being realistic, I don't think he's going to be a comfortable start at the tight end position for us. Another guy I'm not wasting my breath on the waivers for, and this one might be a little bit controversial and I'll get into why later, and that is Ezekiel Elliott. And this might be crazy because in week 3 we saw Zeke come out here with 17 total touches on offense and had a pretty efficient day on the ground. And I do think Zeke will continue to be an asset to this offense. I did ever since he got signed, and he's averaging a 35% snap share, which I wouldn't be surprised if that number went up. But the thing is, even if he were to see a 50% snap share, there is just not a world with the usage he's getting to be a startable guy comfortably for us. Ramondre is going to continue to be the receiving back, and that's going to give him a higher floor. And similar to Derrick Henry, if he can come out every single game and get 80 yards on the ground rushing, he's still going to only have about 8 points a week and be on your bench. And that yardage alone isn't likely for him to get every single game. Essentially, you're going to be hoping for a touchdown, which is going to happen here and there, especially when and if he does get more involved. But you can't look at this performance in week 3 and say he's startable. He can come into this Patriots offense and get the Zeke role from the Cowboys, but this offense isn't the Cowboys. There was about 40 rush attempts from this backfield in total last week because of the bad matchup. The weather was scripting a very run-heavy game, and he was still second to Ramondre in routes run out of the backfield and carries. I assume he's gonna have the goal line work, but again, you're just gonna be hoping for a touchdown for him to get over 5 points a week. And that's not something we can be starting even in our flex spot every single time. Let your league mates go and fight for him while we're going ahead and picking up Roschon Johnson. If you guys haven't heard about him, I've just posted the waiver wire ad for week 4 on my page. I'll pin it somewhere in here. You guys can go watch that after this one. But the next guy I want to talk about super quick is Donald Parham, the tight end behind Gerald Everett for the Chargers. But can we really say behind? Because he's the tight end 6 so far on the season, and he has a 50-50 split with Gerald Everett. And yes, the tight end position might be scary, but it is never scary enough to have to pick up Parham as your tight end option. He's had 7 targets for 34 yards, and he's looking to be like one of Justin Herbert's favorite red zone targets. He's had 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks, but realistically, this touchdown volume is not sustainable whatsoever, and if you were to take those touchdowns completely out of his totals, he would be the tight end 50. Even with the Mike Williams ACL injury that'll put him out for the remainder of the season, there are better tight end options. And he's been getting a decent amount of hype lately, but the next guy you cannot be adding on your waivers that everybody else seems to be hyped up about is Marvin Mims. I cannot believe he's rostered in 30% of leagues. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And I actually love Mims as a player, but this is not a guy we can go through and start consistently every single week just by looking at the fantasy points he's put up. He has never played over 30% of the snaps, even with Jerry Jeudy out. And he only has 9 targets on the entirety of the 3-week season. And he does have the potential to emerge as the deep threat guy on this offense, but at the end of the day, if you're the 4th option for the Russell Wilson-led Broncos, you cannot be blinded by all the touchdowns and the fantasy points because those are volatile for wide receivers. And I just wanted to put that out there just in case there was a guy asking about it, but that is going to conclude this video for the top waiver wire ads you need to be avoiding this week to let all your idiot league mates pick up and give you the edge. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to have your post notifications on to not miss it every single week, and I'll see you guys in the next video coming tomorrow.